only mode.
Hi everyone and welcome to the For Purpose Digital Communication webinar. My name is Joanna Lee. I'm the co-founder of For Purpose, Director of Corporate Relations and Communication at YWCA Canberra. I'm a bit of a social media nerd, and with me today is James Chu, who's a video blogger, an entrepreneur and an all-round social media guru. Thanks again for joining us everyone. We're really excited to have you here today. We've got some For Purpose alumni with us, as well as some other special guests, which is great. Throughout our session today, we'll ask you to either ask questions using the question tab on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer them at the end of the session. You can also tweet us using our hashtag FPDigital. And you can see up on the screen now my handle and James's handle as well if you'd like to mention us at all. And I'll also just flag with you that handouts of our slide decks from today's session are available for you to download under the handout tab, which is not far from the questions tab on the right hand side of your screens. Okay, so our program today. First of all, I'm going to run through some of the nuts and bolts of social media plans. I'm then going to go through some tips on blogging, Instagram and Facebook use for purpose organisations. Then James is going to kick off on talking to you about creating compelling video content. And throughout the presentations, we'll share with you some of the tools that we think are essential for your success in this space. And then at the end, we'll have our Q&A. Okay, so social media plans, what do they look like? Well, I think first of all, it's important to contextualise the role of social media in your organisation's overall communications efforts. So social media is one of many tactics that you might choose to deploy to achieve a communication goal. Other tactics that your organisation may be using now or you might be considering using might include traditional media relations, events, letter writing and of course face-to-face meetings. But it can be useful to drill down to the next level of our overarching strategic comms efforts or our plan and develop a distinct social media strategy that really outlines why we're using it, how we use it and who we want to reach through our social. So I think it's particularly useful to do this for organisations that are new to the social media space because it can really help to focus your efforts and ensure that everyone understands why you're spending time and resources on social. And it'll also allow you to measure your impact at the end of the day. So you can see listed here some of the key elements of what I think a strategic comms plan should actually incorporate. But there's no hard and fast rules. I'm just sharing with you guys what I think they should cover, regardless of whether they're for a specific project, a campaign that you might be running, or even just an organisation-wide strat comms plan. So those key elements, situation analysis, we've got position statements that outline your intent or where your organisation stands on different issues, key messages, target publics, your goals, objectives and tactics, your budget and of course your evaluation. Now you can adapt this framework to suit your social media plans, but because of time restraints today I'm just going to focus on a couple of those key sections. So I'm going to talk about the target publics and goals, objectives and tactical tips. But if you'd like to learn more about the other aspects of the framework, then you should definitely come along to my full-day bootcamp in September, and you can see all the details of that up on the For Purpose website, which is forpurposeoz.com. I just also wanted to flag before we move on to talking about some of these areas that it's also really important that you guys think about your social media policies alongside these strategies, as well as your training for staff that might be engaged in social. And also a clear outline of the governance arrangements that are supporting your social media plans. So target publics. Target publics is a PR term for those of you that don't know. Other like terms are things like audiences or target audiences, but I like to use target publics because in public relations that's the term that we use rather than marketing or advertising. So I think a critical process of planning for your social is to segment and analyse your target publics. So when we're talking about target publics, what we mean is the people whose opinions and views that are going to form the public perceptions of our organisations and our reputations. So it's really about relationships, and they're the things that are going to make or break our organisation's success, whether they're journalists, politicians, government bureaucrats, clients, regulators, our own staff, bloggers, or indeed social media influencers. So it's really important to examine who our target publics are, what they care about, what kind of relationship we want to build with them, and how we're going to build that relationship, because it's critical to the development of our social media plans in helping us determine our goals, objectives, messages, content, and so forth. So in terms of segmenting your publics, I've created a really simple model, and it's a combination of my ideas as well as those of a scholar called Kirk Hallahan. And the key segments, as you can see here in the table, include latent, aware and active. So what does all that mean? Essentially, latent publics are people that aren't aware or conscious of your issue or your organisation. They've got very low levels of involvement with what you're doing, and to engage these people or these groups of publics, you would need to undertake some kind of profile or awareness raising activities. Aware publics, they're the folks that already recognise the issue that you're dealing with or your organisation, and they could be engaged through things like educative activities like lobbying, media engagement, or general relationship building such as forming coalitions or alliances. And then you've got your active publics. So those are the people that either support or oppose your issue or organisation. And those are the groups that are generally pretty engaged. So what you're focusing on there with them is activities that either persuade them to act in a particular way or enticing them to collaborate with you further on potentially things like joint media releases, it could be a social media campaign, providing briefings on a particular issue, or negotiating with them if that's what calls for. So the first step when you're thinking about identifying who your publics might be is to do some desktop research and do some brainstorming with people within your organisation, and think about who the people groups or other organisations are that you're trying to connect with. Think about whether they actually are people like bloggers. Are they social media influencers? Are they allied organisations? Perhaps they're journalists or maybe politicians. So jot down everything you know about them, think about what they like, what they dislike, their habits, their interests, and obviously what motivates them. And then try to group them according to some of their shared attributes. And those attributes might be those interests that I talked about, or it might also be their geographic location. It could be things like the organisations that they work for. So group them according to those shared attributes. And then think about the relationship that you want to build with those people. So what's the purpose of you reaching out to them? Once you've done that, you probably have a rough idea of who some of your target publics are, or the most important groups or people that you're trying to reach through your social media efforts. And you can see here that I provided some theoretical examples of target publics that might apply to YWCA Canberra, which is where I spend most of my days. So just as an example, and the aware public category that you can see there, I've put down editors of feminist and women's news sites and blogs. So obviously YWCA being a feminist organisation, we're always looking for coverage on issues that we're dealing with or events that we're running, for example. So editors of those leading women's online publications are obviously part of those target publics for us. What do we know about them, or what are their attributes? We know that they're time poor, they're tight on resources, they're always looking for great content, excuse me. They need reliable talent or spokespeople, and they're looking for opportunities to expand their readership. Excuse me. And what do we want to achieve with that group? Well, as I said, we're always looking for coverage, so we want to raise awareness of things like our advocacy platform, which is something that we're currently doing a lot of work around, and potentially things like our women's leadership initiatives. Okay, goals and objectives, really important. Goals as some of you may be aware, they should be set according to the broad parameters of what your plan is trying to achieve. And they really should be, whether they're specific social media goals or broader strategic comms goals, aligned to your organisation's strategic plan or strategic directions. So we're not just doing comms for the sake of it or because it's fun, we're doing it because it's helping to reach or meet some of those broader organisational goals. Now, I think people sometimes confuse the terms goals and objectives or have different interpretations of what they mean, so I'm just going to quickly run through the definitions as I see them. So goals are usually about building reputation, they can be about building relationships, but also about tasks. Now, there are some scholars that define goals as being statements of the end to be achieved to resolve your core problem. Okay. But above all else, your social media goals should be set in line with your organisation's broader strategic goals, as I said before. Now, objectives underpin our goals, okay, and they're precise and they're measurable statements that indicate the steps needed to achieve those goals. So they're outcome specific. All right. So throughout your planning process and when you're thinking about these goals and objectives, it's really important to always ask yourself and continuously ask yourselves, why? So why are we using this social media platform? Why are we spending time and money on developing potentially a library of stock images or video? Why are we posting at this particular time of day? Why are we using these hashtags, etc.? Social is pretty sexy. It's easy to kind of get sucked in and then absorb a whole heap of resources that your organisation really can't be dedicating to those activities. And then at the end of the day, when you look back, you think, well, we did lots of things, but what did we actually achieve? Or what were the outcomes? Or what was our impact? So in order to not find ourselves in that situation, the planning process is critical, and setting these goals and objectives is going to help us make sure that we're spending that time and those resources in the right way. So start by asking yourselves, why are you looking to get into social, or why are you continuing to use social media? Is it to fundraise? Is it to attract new members? Is it to secure new volunteers, drive people to your website, build your online brand? The answers to those types of questions are going to form the basis of your social media goals. Once you've nutted those out, you need to identify your objectives. So again, hallmarks of good objectives are that they're quantifiable, they're clear statements, and they're measurable and time-bound preferably. Okay. The next step is to identify what actions or activities need to be taken in order to meet that objective and overarching goal. And that's the day-to-day stuff that needs to happen. Okay. And in my plans, I also like to include the staff member or the team member that's going to be responsible for leading that activity. Okay, so we've got some accountability there. And I've included some examples up here that also might apply to an organisation like YWCA Canberra. And as I said earlier, guys, all of these slides will be available to you at the end, so I won't read through them now. All right, content creation. So you've got the nuts and bolts of your plan down, but what about content creation? Well, a good place to start is to think about developing stories based on the work that you do every day and the communities that your organisations are part of. Everyday things, as funny as it is, are often the things that people connect with most. So, for example, think about how you're going to share the stories of the people that work in your team or the other people more broadly in your organisation. What do they do every day? Are they in campaign mode? Are they preparing for an event? So some possible story angles that you could think about might include things like celebrating a successful grant or tender application, and hopefully we all have a few of those from time to time. Could be announcing a new corporate partnership that you've secured. It could be sharing case studies to demonstrate areas of need in the communities that you work in. Could be covering an event that you're running or showcasing an innovative project that sets you guys out from your peers. Or it could be profiling one of your team members, as I said, with their day-to-day work. So in terms of what resonates on social, my best advice is to just test and trial some ideas. Some things that you think are going to be the best ideas won't work, and vice versa. But you're never going to know what resonates with your particular communities until you start to trial things and give it a go. And Platforms like Facebook are really great because they've got built-in analytics that are really easy to use. So it's not difficult for you guys to start tracking what is successful in terms of your social content and what isn't. You don't need to spend lots of money on fancy analytics packages, as fun as they might be to play with. Okay, so blogging. I think that the value of blogging is often really overlooked, particularly by organisations, but it's one of the most simple and cost-effective ways of enhancing your organisation's website's SEO or search engine optimisation. And yes, of course, you need to make an investment in writing or sourcing content and creating images or video, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. So a blog is an excellent vehicle for keeping your website content fresh and up to date. And you can do things like promote events, you can humanise your organisation or give it a different voice to talk on particular issues, which is what FAIR, or the Foundation for Alcohol Research and Education, has done with their blog Drink Tank, and the URL there is drinktank.org.au. You can see there that FAIR is able to explore a whole range of topics or take different angles on issues that they may not be able to do if they talk about those issues as the organisation itself. You can also, through your blogging efforts, thank your supporters, really important. You can share your good news stories, showcase your services and how fantastic they are, highlight your community heroes or fantastic volunteers, and profile your key team members. It's really important to also note that your social media profiles can promote the content on your blog as much as your blog promotes the social profiles themselves, so the two work really well hand in hand. Instagram. I'd be really interested to know actually how many of your organisations have Instagram accounts. I think I was having a look at the 2015 Census social media report, and there's quite a large population of individual users and organisations that are actually using Instagram. So it's an important platform to consider when you're going through your planning. So Instagram, first and foremost, for those of you that don't know, it's a visual tool. So creating compelling images and video to communicate your messages and stories is really important. The good news is that you don't need to engage a professional photographer to do this. Your smartphone and a bit of creativity is pretty much all you need. And some of my favourite tools for helping in creating great images, because you don't all need to be able to use Photoshop and Illustrator and other professional packages, are things like Canva, you can see up there, Over and WordSwag, but there's heaps more, so go out and have a look and have a play with some of those. There's free versions of most of those, but you may decide that it's worth investing a few dollars to get professional versions because they have a lot more functionality. But WordSwag, for example, actually lets you upload your own logo and overlay it on the images that you create. So that helps to create some consistency in your branding on Instagram and brand recognition. Where possible, I urge you to use original images because they're going to tell your story best. I think World Vision Australia does a really good job of this. You can see in the example here, and if you have a look at their account, it's full of really bright, colourful and emotive visuals, but sometimes that's not possible, either because you don't have the budget or time to go out and take photos, or pay someone to go and take those photos for you, or potentially you can't get images of a program because you're working with vulnerable people, etc. But that's where a powerful quote or a stat can provide a great alternative. And you can see there the example from Thank You, which is a social enterprise. They do that particularly well. Take lots and lots and lots of photos. So don't just take one or two, take heaps, and then you can pick the best ones. Avoid using flash because it really doesn't do anyone any favours. And use natural light where you can, where possible. Lots of successful Instagrammers, and this is more as individuals, they use a combination of visuals and text, and the text often reads a bit like a mini blog post. In Instagram, you don't have the luxury of posting hyperlinks, so you need to think about in your Instagram profile area what link that you choose to use there or feature there and why. So obviously, if you're running an advocacy campaign of some kind and you're trying to gain some attention around that, you would select a hyperlink that sent people off to your main campaign page. Hashtags are also really important to consider. They're a great way to engage new followers and also allow your existing community members to communicate with one another around a particular theme. You can use hashtags to also target prospective followers by using words obviously that relate to a particular topic or issue that you know that they're interested in, but also geographic locations. So I think for those of you that are in Canberra, hashtag CBR is a tag that's often used when people are promoting local content here. And you can of course also mention specific Instagrammers by their handle, but I would urge you to only do that when really necessary. You don't want them to think that you're stalking them. Okay, Facebook. Now managing Facebook pages strategically can be a bit of a challenge, especially because of the ever-changing Facebook algorithm that we're constantly trying to figure out. And also the fact that the news feeds are really crowded and competitive space. But there are some tips, and some of these are from Facebook itself. Facebook have published quite a lot of resources that help not-for-profit organisations use their platform more strategically, so you should go and scope that out. So things like keeping your posts short and visual. So people like to scan on Facebook typically, so keeping things short and using big beautiful images is really important, as well as videos, and James is going to talk about that in a sec. Thinking about integrating your Facebook page, so especially for small to medium not-for-profit organisations, when you're looking at growing your following on Facebook, think about how you promote it and think about other channels, so not promoting it through this platform itself. What that means is you need to think about integrating your page into your website, into your e-newsletters if you've got them, your blog, and even promoting it through your print material. So you can add a Facebook icon or a feed widget onto your website's homepage, and that's really, really easy to do if your website is built on a platform like WordPress. Add share and like functions to your blog, add a Facebook icon to your e-newsletters, add a Facebook link to staff email signatures, add a Facebook pitch to your print and promotional materials like postcards if you use them, your annual report and newsletters. It's also really important to be responsive, and a good way to kind of keep on top of your content is to also create a calendar to guide you. So typically people like it when you listen to them in the real world, and this also applies in Facebook. So when you reply to posts or comments quickly, you'll notice that your publics are more responsive as well. It's a good idea to also outline on your Facebook pages your house rules or rules of engagement, just so that people kind of understand the tone of your community, what to expect, and generally how to behave. Link posts back to your website. So when you add a link to your post, it automatically creates an image, you've probably noticed, from the website, and a large clickable area that makes it easy for people to go to your website. You can also customize the headline and description to give your target publics more reason to click through on your link. And finally, post more of what your target publics want. So when you learn how your target publics respond to certain content, you'll be able to post more of what they love. Posting is really about, well, successful posts are really about quality and relevance, not quantity. So, you know, pick and choose what you are posting. We're all time poor and resource poor, so you know, when you're investing time in creating your content, don't think about, oh, we've got to post something necessarily every day or twice a day, etc. Go for what you think is going to resonate with your community, because ultimately you'll get more exposure via the Facebook algorithm as soon as people start to engage anyway. I might leave it at that and hand over to James now, who's going to talk to you about how to make awesome video content. So bear with me while I just change presenters.
All right. Let me know if you can see that, Joe.
Yep, all good.
Okay, awesome. Hi everyone. My name is James Chu, as Joe has said, and thanks, Joe, for letting me join you today in this what's been already I've got a page of notes already. Just I'm hoping to touch on some of that and sort of try and tie in video into some of the stuff that Joe's speaking about. So rather than Joe talking to you about just social, I can talk to you about video and integrating video into that social strategy that Joe spent a lot of time talking about already. So like I said, my name's James Chu, so I'm going to be talking to you about digital video creation. If you have any questions, like Joe said in the beginning, use the hashtag FPDigital, or just throw them in the question box here on GoToWebinar, and I'll be able to see those, and we can answer those at the end. So let me just jump in here. So a little bit about me before we jump into it. In case you haven't heard of me, probably most of you haven't heard about me, but I always like to know who's talking to me before I start listening. So really, I am a father of 4 daughters. That's only 3 featured in the image because at the time the other one was still in the oven. I've been a video entrepreneur since about mid-2015, but I've been playing around online, doing a lot of social media marketing, a lot of online marketing since early 2011. I've served over 8 years in the Navy, so that set me up when it comes to a lot of processes and everything like that, understanding how that all works and you know, building processes into my organization and my business. But I also have used video to become a contributor to a couple of large-scale publications such as entrepreneur.com, not only for video but also for blog posts as well. And of course the last one, Wine and Cheese Lover. And yeah, so that's probably the most important one. But enough about me. Today is all about you guys and your organizations and how video can help you achieve your goals. And talking about goals and objectives, Joe's already talked to us about, you know, reputation, relationships. So how can video help you achieve that? And that's hopefully what I'm going to get through to you today. Like I said, any questions, just leave them for afterwards. So let's talk about video. And video is probably something that a lot of you have thought about from an organizational communication strategy standpoint, but there's a few roadblocks that I'll get into soon that stop people from using video. But the fact that you're here is probably because you've thought about using video and you're like, oh, you know, I want to learn out more. I want to learn more. So to me, video is a huge part of communication strategy, especially moving forward into, you know, the digital age and noting where video is going and where the internet is going. This is going to be really crucial, I believe, for organizations to stay abreast of this and start using video in their strategies basically from yesterday. So let's talk a little bit about why it's a good reason to start using video in your organization. And here's just a few stats, and I know these are some, you know, stats are generic and stuff like this, but I think this is really interesting, especially when we're talking about decision makers and getting people to make decisions and invest in our organizations. So to start off with, YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine on the internet. That's it. It's massive because Google owns it, and obviously everyone knows Google, but YouTube is huge. The volume that goes through YouTube is just through the roof. By 2019, 80% of the internet traffic will be video content. Just think about that for a second. 80% of what people are looking for and what people are browsing for on the internet will be video content. But not only that, 75% of senior executives surveyed by Forbes watch business-related videos at least weekly. So if your organization is producing video content targeted at these decision makers, targeted at senior execs, it could be seen. And more than half the senior executives share business-related videos weekly. And I've put a link down there, and as Joe said, our notes, our presentations are available in the handout, so you can go and click on that and read the full report if you'd like as well. So video is not just, you know, 14-year-olds watching Minecraft videos on YouTube or watching Peppa Pig videos if you've got any young kids out there. It's an important tool that organizations are using to communicate to their target audiences. But it's not just the C-suite that's looking at it. You know, video is engaging. Using video in blog posts and announcement increases your audience. Your audience is likely to stick around about 88% longer than just written content. And personally, I've done a lot of tests, and I've found that to be true. You can actually run split tests using analytics packages, as Joe's mentioned, and it's incredibly visible just how long the increase that people stay on your page session for. Social networks are rewarding unique video content. So Joe's talked a lot about Facebook and Instagram. These are 2 massive networks that are using video content all the time. And if your organization is implementing video into the communication strategy to target those latent and aware audiences, then, you know, video is a perfect medium because they're rewarding your content, bumping it up to the top, and they're not penalizing it for just sharing links and stuff like that. It's easy to share your message. Body language makes up a large portion of our communication. So, using content such as behind the scenes, talking about partnerships you've just struck up, like, Joe's mentioned, maybe event coverage, talking about the events or, successful things that your organization's been able to achieve. The content and the excitement and the passion that your body language can bring, as well as the, the spoken word, it's just hugely powerful in my particular opinion, and, for a lot of people as well. And demonstrations and presentations, much like this one. I mean, this is a video presentation. It will be available for people to watch on a replay. This is just the perfect way to deliver content. So, video is more than just those videos that you see kicking around on YouTube. But video, most importantly for my business and for me personally, it's helped me become a contributor to major publications, and I think this is really valuable for organizations who are looking to partner with either businesses or other organizations in similar spaces. The fact that you can use video to begin to establish that relationship, you can use video to collaborate together as organizations, it's a hugely powerful tool. And it's the perfect strategy for media releases and announceables. The reason I threw in announceables is because I am a massive fan of Holloman, and I watch it all the time. So if any of you like that, it's something like that. But I think video is going to become the new media release. It's going to become replace that boring PDF with something that is engaging, that's something that's passionate about, that journos and other bloggers and people who share your message can just grab the video from YouTube, the embeddable video, and put it on their blog, or put it into an article, or put it into a news publication or somewhere like that. They can share the video content easily rather than just the the PDF that they need to go and type out everything again. So I think video is going to start replacing the media release very soon, if not already. But you know what? You're probably thinking, yeah, this is all good, James, but we're time poor, we've got limited resources, and there's a number of roadblocks that are just in the way, and that's what I was talking about before. I want to get into those and sort of bust those wide open so you can understand just how easy it is to use video for your organization and incorporate it into that existing strategy that Joe's talked so much about today. Some roadblocks that I see all the time from people, not just individual entrepreneurs, but businesses and organizations. I'm not good on camera, I don't want to be on camera, I'm not a videographer, I don't know how to edit, the equipment's expensive, we've got limited budget, we don't have the time to produce video content. What content do we share? Well, for starters, Joe's already talked about content today, and everything that she has said could be shared via video. We don't have the time to produce content. If you make it a priority, you'll find the time. Equipment's expensive? Well, it's not, and I'm going to prove to you that it's not. I'm not a videographer, I don't know how to edit. Well, hey, that's why I'm here, to help you with that. And I'm not good on camera, find someone else who is. Or create a presentation, much like this one. It's still video content, it's still engaging, there's lots of tools out there that help you do it. You don't necessarily have to be on camera from day one. So like I said, they're all valid concerns, except they're not that valid, because we can bust those wide open, and I'll get into that right now. So let's take a look at the equipment. Okay, this is the biggest challenge that a lot of people see is, oh, don't have the equipment on me. Our organization can't afford to go out and buy a $2,000 camera and lights and microphones, and how do we set it all up? It becomes this massive, massive task, when in fact, it's really not. Look, here's some examples of equipment. A smartphone. Chances are every single one of us here on this webinar today has a smartphone. A tripod, $25 to $50. You can probably pick one up for 10 bucks on eBay. A smartphone clip, which I actually got from a selfie stick. I just took it off a selfie stick, $4 from eBay. A Rode SmartLav Plus, $70. So your most expensive item here is a microphone. And the reason why the microphone is so expensive is because, one, it's super good quality, but two, it plugs directly into your smartphone. So you don't need reporter mics, you don't need shotgun mics, you don't need boom mics, you don't need LED light bars and all this complicated stuff. You need something to hold the camera, aka your smartphone, steady. There's a tripod and a smartphone clip. You need a microphone to make you sound half decent. $70, you plug it in. So for less than $200, you've got a complete equipment setup for your smartphone. And then sharing the content from your phone to the web is actually super simple. But you can obviously pull it onto a computer, do some minor edits, add in a logo, that sort of stuff. That's very, very simple also. But really the biggest thing here is just have a crack at it. You can produce a video for your organization. It's not going to go out to the world unless you share it. So if you start and produce one and then you sit down and you review it, we didn't like it, go back and do it again. And keep practicing and practicing until you're happy with it or until it represents your organization in the way that you want it to, then release it. This is what a lot of people get afraid of. They don't want to shoot video because, oh, people aren't going to see it. People are going to see it. Well, they're not going to see it unless you don't release them. So that's the equipment. I'm going to give you a gift in a minute that you can go and grab. But first, what about lights? This is a big question. People are like, well, we need lights to make us look good. Use a window. That's really, stand in front of a window. Like Joe said, natural light is the best. If it's a very sunny day, put some baking paper over the window. Baking paper is what's called a diffuser. Diffuses the light, takes it from being overly bright to a nice sort of shade. So put some baking paper over a window. It's the perfect way to harness the natural light. And also days with clouds like today in Canberra, perfect day again because the clouds diffuse the light. So don't worry about anything expensive. You don't need it. So there's really not an excuse that you can give me today that's valid, because if you try to give me an excuse why your organization can't do video, I'll give you a reason why your organization can do video. It is very, very simple and it is very, very effective. So if you want to know more info about the equipment, I'm just going to post this link here in the chat right now. And you can go and download that. That right there is the handbook to a course that I've made on how to create awesome video with less than $200. I'll give you the whole handbook for free, so you don't need to buy the course. That's got all the links to the equipment that you can go and buy for your organization. So let's talk about content. Joe's already talked to us about content, behind the scenes, partnership, event coverage, that sort of stuff. How does that fall into engaging our audiences that are latent, aware, and active? Well, content is really up to your imagination. The biggest source of content, in my opinion, is your audience. If you've already got an audience as an organization, you've got an email list, you've got a Facebook page, you've got a blog, there's plenty of inspiration out there that you can use to engage these three audience types. Keep track of the news that's interesting to your audience. Report on something. If something changes, add your 2 cents to it from your organization's standpoint. Use video to add your organization's perspective. That's what I just said. But use frequently asked questions on your website, or notice the questions that your Facebook page gets the most. Answer those. Use those as inspiration for your first few videos. The point is here, and I'm getting towards the end here. The point is that content ideas are everywhere. Content ideas are everywhere for your organization. It's just a matter of thinking outside the box. It's a matter of approaching it in a new, refreshing way, and then using the equipment that I showed you before. Just go and record something. You don't have to share it with the world just yet. So here's my suggestion. Use a spreadsheet and create 3 columns: topic, objective, and why it's important. The reason why I say why it's important is because sometimes you write down a topic and you forget why you wrote down the topic. So if you're looking to come up with ideas, topic, objective of that video, well, what is that video going to achieve for our organization? How does that tie into our goals and objectives of the organization? Why is it important? Write down every single idea. Don't think that one idea is dumber than the next. Write everything down, because you don't know what's going to work in the future. Review it once a week or once a month, depending on your schedule and your time frame, and come up with those ideas and develop those ideas into video content. Highlight topics that need more work, and move the topics that you've used to another sheet. That way you're not doubling up and spending all this time developing content that you've already done and delivered to your audience. So that's how I sort of develop my content, and I have a bit of a framework that I work through to develop the videos into more of a presentable manner, but that's really the basis of coming up with video content and ideas for videos for your organization. So once you create that first video though, and this is something I've noticed for a lot of people, is once you've created one, as a downhill slope, because you just fall in love with the process, you fall in love with the creativity, you fall in love with the whole shebang of doing video and how it helps your organization. And I tell you what, you'll start to see the return on effort. I don't like to talk about return on investment. I like to return on effort because it's your time, your effort that you're putting into this for your organization, and you will see a return that you've invested into video very quickly. Guarantee it. So, Joe, that just wraps up my bit of presentation. If you want to jump back on and we'll start taking some questions.
Sure. Thanks a lot, James. That was, I think, really complementary to some of the areas that I covered off, and also helped us get our heads around the fact that as not-for-profit organisations, even with teeny tiny budgets, we can probably branch out and do a bit more, or start to do some video for the first time. I haven't seen any questions come through in the little questions window there, and we'd love to hear from our audience, and I know there's 34 of you. So there's got to be at least one person with a question. And I haven't seen anything on Twitter either, so make sure that if you find it easier to tweet rather than just type on your computer, that you do so using our hashtag, which is FPDigital. James, I'm going to ask you a question though.
Yeah.
Can you give us any examples of organisations or individuals that do low budget video really well? So for a bit of context.
Yeah, I mean, all of my video content's done on a very low budget. I mean, I've got 4 kids, right? So, you know, I'm eating baked beans half the time.
I've also got a kid. Everyone can probably now hear in the background.
Mine are off playing on the iPad. I think there is, you would be surprised how many people out there, especially if you're thinking, if you look at just YouTube generally and you look at people who are quote-unquote successful on YouTube, you would be surprised in the amount of the equipment that they use. A lot of the time it's either GoPros, it's the smartphones, or it's little point-and-shoot cameras. And I see a question come in there from Jessica. What editing software do you recommend? And a lot of these videos that you're seeing on YouTube, you know, just to pull off like a couple of names off the top of my head, Casey Neistat is a massive vlogger out of New York City, and he edits using Final Cut, but a lot of his stuff was done on free software called iMovie for Mac and Windows Movie Maker for the Windows people out there. I mean, think about smartphones now. They have 4K video capabilities. That's, you know, huge, considering that sort of content, that sort of equipment was only really used for Hollywood. Now it's available in the palm of your hand. So I don't think it's so much the equipment aspect of it. I think it's more of the how can we do things differently, or think about things in a different perspective and use the equipment that you have. So like I said, I put the equipment list up there for, you know, for less than $200 you would have a very, very good setup for video content, and it would be very high quality. I think the story is what matters, or how you tell that story, how you share that content. That's really the most important part when it comes to video.
Absolutely. I think, and that's the same applies to any kind of content, the story aspect, and, you know, particularly for not-for-profit organisations that are engaged in advocacy, a call to action. You know, what are you actually asking your audience to do once they've, you know, been moved by this piece of content? James, there's another question for you that's come from James Farrell on Twitter. He's asked you to talk a little bit about using animation in a cheap and effective way, and he's asked what tools we can use to do a reasonable job at this.
Yeah, there is, what are they called now? Market Samurai? Market Samurai used to be a research tool for keywords, for blog posts and everything, but now they came out with, and I'm trying to find while I'm talking here, they came out with a tool that would let you create automations very, very simply, and basically you would just upload a bunch of content and it would generate like a slide deck type of thing for you, that you could quite easily create video animations. There's a bunch of other tools out there. Yeah, all you would really have to do is Google like video animations, free, and I they use the word free in there because you'll find tools that are free then. Yeah, you'll be able to find a bunch of tools out there. Custom animations are a little bit harder. However, that being said, there is a really, you know, and a lot of people probably know this, Fiverr is a great source for get things done cheaply. Jump on a Fiverr, find like someone who's proficient in After Effects, Adobe After Effects, and get them to animate your video, like your logo, and that's just a drop and drag process when you're editing. And I think Bobby has asked a similar question for editing there. It's just a drop and drag process. So getting custom animations can be quite expensive, but if you're not ready to be on camera as a person representing your organization or as an organization, just doing slide decks is very valid and very easy to do as well.
Thanks, James. I've also got another question for you, and I think it's something that I don't know, people have varying opinions on, and there's various research that might point to some different answers to this. But how long should a good piece of video content for social media be?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting question, right? You talked a lot about testing when it came to content on Facebook and Instagram and everything like that, and I think that's what it comes down to. My personal perspective is 1:30 to 2:30 is a good length, but if you're doing something that requires the length, I mean, my personal opinion is don't say something in 100 words when you can say it in 10. So if you can say something in 1:30 or you can say something in 30 seconds, don't, for the sake of, oh, you know, someone told me 3 minutes is a good length, take 3 minutes to say it in 30 seconds. And, you know, talking about Instagram and stuff like that, 60-second video for Instagram. Facebook is a funny beast when it comes to video at the moment, because Facebook counts a 3-second view. So if anyone watches the video for 3 seconds, regardless if they're listening to the audio or they've actually clicked on the video, they count that as a view. So your views on Facebook can be a bit skewed in comparison to YouTube, which takes about 30 seconds to register a view. So, yeah, I think the answer to that question, Joe, is, you know, say it in however many words you need to say it, and if it needs to be 3 minutes, make it 3 minutes. If it needs to be 15 minutes because it's an important announcement and it's, you know, you're basically reading a whole media release or something like that, or it's a tutorial for your organization, yeah, take the time you need to do that you need to share that message.
Very good advice. James, so I've got a bunch of questions here. We need to talk more clearly. So you talked about YouTube as a large-scale platform
Yep.
that has a lot of potential. I know that there's obviously other competing platforms out there like Vimeo.
Sure.
For not-for-profit organisations in particular and small ones, is there a better platform, or what are the kind of pros and cons of each, or is there another platform that we're not even aware of?
Yeah, personally, I think YouTube is the place that everyone should be, unless you're housing internal video content or content that's only meant for a specific audience that you're sharing a link to. The reason why, and I'll get into that in a second, the reason why is YouTube has this super strong community, and the fact that Google owns YouTube, I mean, type in a query into Google, just something like how to change like a light bulb or something like that, okay, something very benign. Type that into Google, and I guarantee in the top sort of 5 to 6 results on Google, you will see video content that's on YouTube. That right there is a major sort of like alarm bell saying, hey, put your stuff out on YouTube, because we're going to reward it. And the fact that, you know, there's so many hours of content being consumed, I think it was like 300 hours every minute being consumed on YouTube, or, you know, something ludicrous, that's where you should be. Now, Vimeo, Wistia, Amazon S3, there's a stack, okay? Vimeo, I believe, started out as sort of like an indie filmmakers platform that they sort of like, well, hey, we want a better platform than YouTube to share our short films. That's, I think, if you were creating like a short film trailer, or maybe like a really good trailer for your not-for-profit, host it on Vimeo and also YouTube. The fact is that YouTube, you can customize your homepage, you can have like a feature video, you can have a video as an ad, and YouTube might select it to go on someone else's video, and all these other features that aren't available on any other platform. Incredibly powerful. Wistia is a really, really good platform for content that is exclusive. So if you're putting content out there for, I don't know, okay, I'm creating a course or something for a bunch of my subscribers, I put out content that I only want them to have access to. That's where Wistia comes into it. Wistia is quite expensive though, so if you have a limited budget, steer clear of it. Amazon S3 is free, really good if you have like an IT department or a coding department, programming and that sort of stuff, because it's just service-based Amazon gives you the server space, and great for internal, like intranet videos, that sort of thing.
Excellent. We have a question from one of our attendees, Jessica. She's asked what not-for-profits use video content particularly well to engage in advocacy, and she's asked us to provide some examples. I'll
you probably answered that one because I don't know too much about many not-for-profits using it too well, but yeah, I can give you some, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a really obvious example is GetUp. They have fantastic video content. Yes, they have an amazing comms team there, they really do, and I urge any of you to pick their brain if you ever come across them at a conference, or even just get in touch via social media, because they're quite responsive. And that goes for any other comms professionals that you may be aware of. Asking them questions on social media is a really, really good way of learning and sharing information. And you can certainly access a whole bunch of those people through the Full Purpose Alumni Network once you've come along to one of our events. So GetUp's a really good example, stacks of great video content, and while they obviously have a budget for that content that perhaps other organisations don't, I think that there's lessons that we can learn from those. A good example is, and this isn't related necessarily to their advocacy-based videos, but when they're doing their membership drives, they do these fantastic profiles of their varied and really interesting people that have engaged with them as volunteer members. They do these great little profile pieces that really only require, as James said, one camera, no kind of studio setup at all or lighting. It's just shot, you know, sometimes in their front yard or in their house next to a window. It's a Q&A. It's literally, you know, there's no script writing here. We don't need to be filmmakers. It's a set of punchy questions that you would want to know the answers to if you were thinking about joining that community of GetUp members. So, you know, when you're watching video content like that, think about what are the principles that they've applied there, and how can you adopt that in your own video making. Another organisation, and this is something that's being discussed on the For Purpose Facebook alumni at the moment, is FAIR, so the Foundation for Alcohol Research and Education. Their website's fair.org.au. They are currently running a couple of really interesting campaigns, and they've created some video content around that to help engage people to, in one instance, sign a petition that urges football codes to drop their alcohol sponsorship. The videos, again, are pretty lo-fi. I'm sure that if you wanted to get in touch with the comms people at FAIR, you could do so and have a chat about their approach and what resources they've put into those videos, but quite confident that, you know, they've done it in a pretty minimalistic way. They're short videos that just urge someone, they tell the story, or they make the case for engaging in that particular campaign, and then they urge people to go along and sign a petition. So have a look at those too. Yeah, James, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that is good, Joe. And I think really, you know, just having a look at different organisations, how they are using video, if they're using video at all, but also just having a think about your own organisation. What's the most interacted blog post, or what do people relate to the most on your social media profiles, whether that be Twitter or Facebook or something like that? That's a great place to start for video content, and just that simple Q&A style. You know, have one person sitting down, someone else sitting opposite them, have the camera off to the side a little bit, and ask them a bunch of questions. And I think, you know, that in itself you can pull together a very good looking video in a matter of minutes. And especially if it's one question, and if you go around your whole team, your whole organization, or people who are heavily involved in your organization, ask them the same question, you can create this sort of montage of videos and answers around the similar question, and maybe that's raising awareness about a particular event, or maybe that's getting, you know, the vox pop style questions from an event. There's a bunch of ways that you can do these things, and I think the critical thing is that we're all busy. We all have limited budgets. We all have limited amount of time that we can invest in ourselves, but prioritizing how you want to communicate with people. I think if you understand that your audience is willing to accept video content and is willing to engage with video content, it's the perfect time to start doing it. And the fact is that it's only going to get stronger. It's only going to get more and more mainstream, if your organization is ahead of the bell curve here and start using video in a very positive light, then your organization is going to stand out. And that's, you know, from an organizational standpoint, that's great because it puts you in front of the right people who make the decisions that you need to achieve organizational aims.
Tops. Well, we might wrap it up there, I think. We've got just a minute or so left. So I wanted to first of all thank James Farrell for hosting us today. Thanks obviously James True to you for joining us on our very first digital communications webinar. To everyone that's tuning in, if you do have any other questions that come to you late in the night, feel free to tweet James or I. My handle is @Joe ALLEBONE, Joe Allibone, and James is @James_Chew, TEW, and you'll see those on the first slide in my slide pack that you can download from the handouts drop down in your right hand side of your screen there. Thanks again everyone for joining us. Really hope you enjoyed it. We'll endeavour to make this webinar available on demand after today, and if you'd like to get in touch with For Purpose at all, if you have any queries or want to engage with us or want to hear more about what we do, our website is www.forpurposeoz.com. Thanks a lot everyone. We'll catch you in the Twitter sphere. Bye.